Okay, so I said I was going to make another video talking about how my family got disconnected from legacy. And I'll be talking about some things I'm doing to reconnect and create legacy for myself, my children, and my community. So I was not going to do this video until after the holidays because I just want to kind of breathe. But a beautiful young lady wrote me a note, a letter, and it brought me to tears because people see the outside work of melanation and they see posts, they see little things that we are doing here and there in the community. They're seeing some things that we're doing outside of the city. But very rarely does someone take the time out to see in me, to see past the things that I'm doing. And this beautiful young lady took the time out to write a handwritten letter. And she may never know this, but the letter spoke to my heart and it spoke to my soul and it brought me to tears because this is exactly the reason why I do what I do. This is exactly the reason why people who are connected to Melanation, our core team, this is why they work tirelessly with me to serve the community in whatever capacity we can. Half of the team has gone back to school so they can further their education and be more effective to the community and the women and children that we serve. So this thing has gotten much bigger than just a concept, that was birthed from my own trauma. And so I'm going to start off by saying, okay, how I got disconnected, how my family got disconnected from legacy. And remember, when I speak of legacy and how I'm defining it, I'm saying it is anything that creates value, that creates access, that gives you the step ahead that you need to create wealth, to create. Okay, so legacy is also something that gives you opportunity, and ultimately it's things that you create to change the entire trajectory of your family, of your community, and it impacts you and the people around you for generations to come. That is how you create legacy. And excuse me, legacy doesn't have to be, oh, you become a millionaire. But legacy is something where you can just do just enough to shift the family dynamics, to shift the community dynamics. You can do just enough to shift a system. So it's very impactful. Okay, so anybody who knows me know that I'm very candid. They know my story. And I share it with everyone because it's important for you to know my why behind my what. It's important for you to know who I am and where I come from and why my conviction is so deep about why I do what I do. So it often puzzled me about how we were raised, me and my siblings. My mother was a single parent mom, 5 children. She raised us for the most part by herself, right? She had family that stepped in and things like that supported her as much as they could. But it was mostly her trauma that kept her from legacy. And so I remember being a little girl and she would tell me stories and her family would tell me stories like I said, okay, so I'm going to figure this video thing out one day. I just don't have time to do it today. And if somebody knows how to do it and you want to help me out, you know you can just email me at melanationhealingproject@gmail.com and help a sister out, okay? So in the meantime, you're going to see little clips, slices and stuff like that. So the message is real. The message is what you need. So don't focus on the exterior, okay? So anyways, like I was saying, it always baffled me as to how my mother was raised, which was totally different than how we were raised. My mother struggled most of our life, to provide for us as a single parent mom. She became a mother at 15 years old, I believe. And it was rough, but she did not come from struggle. She grew up in a middle class family, and she grew up in a 2-parent household. She went to private schools majority of her life. Her father was a hardworking man. It was her stepfather, but that was the father she knew, and he helped raise her. And her grandfather was an activist, and he was a pillar in the community, and he did a lot of things. There's actually some projects, housing projects that are named after him, and he also helped found our local NAACP chapter. So that is where legacy connected and was created for her from what I know. I'm quite sure there's more legacy that I don't know about. I'm still learning about my family history, okay? So because of her trauma, because of her unresolved issues, she went a different path than the path that her parents had laid out for her. Okay? And trauma begets trauma. She raised us in her trauma. So, although she didn't know about things like food stamps, she didn't grow up in public schools, public housing. We did. Her children did. Okay? So when I talk about that disconnect, because of her unresolved issues and her trauma, and we can unpack that. I unpack all of that when we talk in our cohorts, because trauma is multifaceted. And I already mentioned that last time in the last video. You can be traumatized by the system. You can be traumatized by your own culture. There's racial trauma, so there's various forms of trauma that add to your psyche and that contributes to how you show up in the world. And because she wasn't able for whatever reason to deal with that and work through those things, she passed the struggle down to us. So now her children are disconnected from the things that she knew and that she grew up on. Okay, so growing up in the inner cities of Toledo, I know it all too well. I know what the hard times feel like. I know what bouncing around from home to home feels like. I know what no food in the house, looks and feels like. So although I grew up disconnected from access to resources to help realign me and reconnect me back to opportunities that can propel me into higher levels of being, as I became an adult, I realized, I was responsible for how I showed up in this world regardless of what happened to me. And this is something I do want to put out there. It is possible to live outside of a system that does not support you. It is possible. We have a lot of issues with, our system. We know that. That's why tons of money is being pushed into different programmings that address systemic issues in our healthcare system. in our education system, in the penal system. So there's a lot of funding that's being pumped into trying to revitalize, the system. But in the meantime, people like us can't wait for the system to be revitalized, reimagined, because we're still living in it and we're still being affected by it in some shape, form, or fashion. So what I realize is that it is possible to live outside of a system that does not support you. People do it every day. People step outside of the system and find ways to connect to people who are bigger than them, people who are more resourceful than them, people who know the way. But it happens when you're ready. It happens when you're healed. So, like I said, it happens when you're healed first. There is no way you can recognize your possibilities from a place of hurt, pain, trauma. It is very difficult, nearly impossible. So that is why I'm always pushing address trauma, heal mama. Heal the gatekeeper of the children. If you heal the gatekeepers of the children will be just all the more effective with the things that you are pouring into them. That's that, and I can go deep into that too. That is for another day. So I talk about things like this with people that I work with, people that I collaborate and do programming with, and things of that nature. So we talk about stuff like this all the time. So I'm constantly thinking about making the connection between living in your trauma to legacy, to flourishing, to thriving, to showing up as a better version of yourself, to creating something so great that it gives opportunity for not just yourself, but for others. And it changes the trajectory of your life, your children's life, and your community, and anyone that has been impacted. And it always leads me back to, first, you have to deal with trauma. Now, I will add something to that, because it is possible for you to thrive in so many areas and still not deal with your trauma, but you show up a hot mess in the midst of all that. And so I talk